Hello everyone, welcome back to another update on the big trip number 2. I just arrived at a community called Earth Haven in North Carolina near Asheville about 2 days ago. And before that was at a community called the Lama Foundation near Taos in New Mexico for 27 days from August 26th to September 20th. So this video is about the Lama Foundation and my experience there and my process. So the Lama Foundation was started in 1967, but they didn't start digging until 69, so it's been around for 55 years, started by 2 New Yorkers. Typically there's about 30 people that live there, which are 3 types of people: your residents, who are like fully living there, your stewards or your work exchangers, which is what I was, or like a visitor or a retreatant, someone there for a retreat. And just acknowledging, that this is the Lama Foundation, or Lama. This year that I'm there, this season, this group of people, and this is my process and my experience of the place, which is obviously going to be different depending on the time and the person and everything like that. So this community is like up on top of this mountain above the Taos Mesa, where you can just see like everything. It's so like the views there are just crazy beautiful, and you can actually look up the mountain too. And so the community is 8,600 feet, and then you can look up and you can hike up to the top of the mountain, which is about 10,000 feet. Super dry air, so really hot in the sun and then really cold in the shade, I guess because the humidity doesn't transfer the heat. It does snow there in the winter. Beautiful sunsets like almost every day there. And you can just see like the community faces towards the west, so you can just see the sunset. Just crazy beautiful. Probably the best location that I've been to as far as communities. Lots of trails and hiking. They have a river that goes through the community, which is their spring, so they get all the water from that. There's 3 small gardens. There's a community like event center where they have lots of classrooms, workshops, retreats called the Dome. Really beautiful. They have a music room with lots of instruments and a big library, and both of them have these little like chill, cozy areas to hang out. In a separate building, they have a big like industrial kitchen for cooking and provide like 1 to 3 meals for the community per day. And outside of the kitchen is this like outdoor seating area called the Portal, where you could just see like the entire, like off of the mountain, the crazy nice views. So just really like beautifully set up infrastructure and like buildings in a great place. They have a sauna, they have tiny homes, they have yurts, they have camping areas. And then close to the community, about 30 minutes away, they have Black Rock Hot Springs, which is on the Rio Grande, with another hot spring that you can hike to. It's like an hour farther. And another sort of human-made hot spring area, which is an hour away from the community, called Ojo Caliente, which is like the nicest hot spring that I've ever been to, although they didn't have cold water. But that was just like, oh, so good. Lama Foundation gets their money from different things, donations. So actually, Ram Dass used to live there back in the day and wrote "Be Here Now," and a lot of the royalties, I think, come from that book to the Lama Foundation to support them. They also print prayer flags and t-shirts and sell them. They get money from retreats and from visitors coming and from hermits. So they have 2 hermitages, which are like 2 tiny homes kind of outside of the community, where people from the community or people from outside can come and just be in hermitage and have like their own retreat when they want. Residents get paid $300 per month. I was a work exchanger or a steward, which meant that I'm working to be able to live there, food, shelter, participation in everything, which looked like working in the kitchen or cleaning or garden or other tasks. The Lama Foundation provides trainings for the people that live there, I think on consensus and conflict mediation, resolution. And what I thought was really cool is that they provide what are called intensives multiple times throughout the year, where like people who are living in the community decide, oh, we want this teacher to come and like provide a week retreat for us as the residents and like for the people living there at the community. And I was just really thinking like, wow, this is like the perfect place where I want to live. You know, there's 5 different types of communities, which I talked about in the last video, Lost Valley. And this is really a spiritual and religious community. And feeling like I really want to live in that. And, you know, this community has all the infrastructure. It's crazy beautiful. They're having money coming in through donations and things. And I found out that you can actually only live there for 7 years, and which kind of made sense. I was like, why is there not like more people living here for longer? And yeah, I wouldn't want to like settle down in somewhere if I knew I could only be there for 7 years. I really want to find a community that can be my home. Yeah, so it's really considered more of like an educational learning center rather than a community where people live. One of the things I really learned was just the importance of like healthy, effective meetings in a community, and how that like very easily transfers into how healthy and effective the community is. Especially like coming from the Lost Valley community in Oregon before this, where they had like the best meetings that I've ever seen. They used sociocracy, where they were just like their meetings there were like very effective, very efficient, organized, mindful, aware. They used like hand signals so that they're not interrupting each other. I judged them to really know what they were doing, and it was kind of like a big shock, culture shock change, and like come into Lama Foundation, and that's one of the things I really felt like they needed help with was the meetings. And just they're slow. They were a lot slower, disorganized. Sometimes people interrupting each other, being defensive. And I guess they have this system. I don't know exactly how it works of rotating facilitators, and I get that that's very good for variety. You get different facilitators, spreading of power. You're getting to learn and experience new facilitators, and people are getting to practice being a facilitator. But then it just seemed like they were really missing like that strong, effective leadership and organization that I feel like is really needed to have like a really high functioning community. Yeah, some of the things I really loved too was just like in Anita community and Zeg in Germany, that you weren't allowed to be on technology in common spaces, and there was like designated place with Wi-Fi where you could be on technology, and so people were a lot more present and like here with each other. And they had a board that has like all the events happening on the month, and then like next to that is like the schedule for the day. And so I wouldn't really have to look at my phone because they had this bell system. So when it was time for something to happen, like a meeting happening at 2:00, they would ring the bell 3 times, which meant that the next thing is happening in 15 minutes. If they ring it twice, the next thing's happening in 5 minutes. If they ring it once, the next thing's happening now. So I didn't have to look at my clock to see if something was happening. I could hear that it was. And if something was happening late, then I knew. The food there, super healthy, clean, delicious. I think one of the feedbacks that I have and that I heard from other people is that not the most ethical, and that we're like in a mountain desert and there's bananas there, and it's like, okay, those must not be locally sourced. That was one of the things I really loved at Tamara in Portugal, the community there. They were really big onto the ethics of food and like really getting things local. And someone was saying too, like, okay, we're buying this almond milk and it's like really not, it comes from this company that's really unethical and harmful, and like, why are we doing that? Yeah. I really loved that this was like a spiritual religious community. I really loved the people there. I loved how involved everyone was and this like feeling of family, and that we meditate together every morning. And after that, we go into a meeting every morning called P&T, Practicals and Tuning, where it was like a small, shorter sharing circle, and then going into like practicals and logistics and things like for the day and for the community. And I just really loved like meeting every day and seeing like where everyone's at, because I think I've shared this in the past, but it takes a lot of energy for me to be in a community, and I go from person to person. Every person is like, how are you doing? And I got to tell like 50 people how I am. And that takes so much energy, rather than like, okay, let's all just meet in the morning and I can say how I am in 1 minute each. And then everyone knows. And yeah. I can see too, just like how, like if I was a resident at a community and living there for years, that okay, I probably wouldn't want to meet every morning, and that would be also a lot of energy. I love that they had Mondays off. Typically, they would have ceremonies there, like they had sweat lodges once a week, and they were in communication with a local Native American group that would come and host peyote ceremonies multiple times throughout the year, and they had one while I was there in a teepee ceremony. So yeah, now kind of going into like my process a little more. Again, just like balancing my alone time versus time with people, and that it's so easy for me to like hang out with people all the time and to really like avoid this feeling of loneliness. And that actually I was seeing that when I have more alone time, that actually brings me more security and contentment in being alone. And I'm able to switch from the feeling of lonely to aloneness, and having security in that. And that I need to have alone time more often. And then yeah, kind of lastly is just noticing, I've shared this before, but just like my craving for things to be a certain way, and anxiety in relationships, and wanting to feel accepted and loved and liked and valued by people in the community, and just my craving around that, and craving for other things to be a certain way, whether it's I want to hang out with this person, or I want them to want to hang out with me, or I don't want to be in this meeting right now, or my back hurts and I don't want to be in this sweat lodge, and I don't like this facilitator, and yeah, just seeing how second noble truth that suffering comes from craving. Yeah, and that like, okay, I have this craving right now, and I'm going to allow it to be here, because if I have aversion for the craving, then that's more craving on top of it. And yeah, just like trying to fully allow things to be as they are. Yeah, and I'll end. I wrote this poem quote after a sweat lodge. It kind of is related to that. Being with a turning belly, an aching back, a broken heart. Being with an itchy nose, a restless mind, a triggered nervous system. Being with a scared inner child. This is the path towards alchemy, equanimity, towards healing, towards freedom. Thank you all. I love you, and I will see you next time.